Family didn't invite me to Christmas because IT's no place for losers, my sister said. I calmly agreed and stopped funding her children and husband. Now she's going crazy and, Christmas isn't a place for losers, my sister Amanda said, standing in the doorway with her arms crossed. The cold December air bit at my cheeks, but her words stung far worse. I'd been holding 2 oversized gift bags, one in each hand, packed with carefully wrapped presents. I'd spent weeks picking out for her kids, for Mom and Dad, even for her husband Tom. For the first time in years, I'd been excited for the holidays. No frantic last-minute shopping, no rushing between stores. Everything was ready, I was ready. So when Amanda's smug smile told me I wasn't welcome, I just nodded. Fine, I said evenly, turning away before she could see my jaw clench. That night I made a decision. If my presence was such a burden, my money would be too, and that's when the real chaos began. Amanda's words rang in my ears long after I turned away. No place for losers. I didn't even remember walking back down the front steps. My boots crunched against the icy driveway, my breath sharp in the cold. The gift bags felt heavier than they had an hour ago, like they knew they no longer had a destination. I sat in my car, engine off, staring at the dashboard. I could still see Amanda standing in the doorway in my mind, that smug little tilt of her head. Behind her, Mom's eyes flickered with discomfort, but she didn't say a word. Dad was somewhere in the background, pretending to busy himself in the kitchen. Not one person asked me to come inside. The thing is, I could have understood if I'd actually done something wrong. But loser? That was new and undeserved. I'd been nothing but generous to my sister and her family. For years, I'd been the one footing the bill for her kids' school supplies, sports uniforms, even that big summer camp they bragged about on Facebook. I'd helped them through emergencies, real ones, not the forgot to budget for the electric bill kind of emergencies, though I covered those too, and now I was being turned away at Christmas. I gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white, then finally shoved the keys into the ignition. I was halfway down the street before I realized I didn't have a single answer. Why this year? Why now? Half an hour later, the gift bags were still on the passenger seat when I pulled into my driveway. I sat there for a long time, watching my breath fog up the windshield, until something inside me hardened. I wasn't going to just let it go, not without hearing the reason from Amanda's own mouth. I backed out, drove the 15 minutes back to my parents' house, and parked in the same spot I'd just left. This time, I left the gifts in the car. I walked straight up to the door and opened it without knocking. Mom and Dad were in the living room, murmuring to each other, and Amanda was sprawled on the couch, scrolling through her phone like she didn't have a care in the world. "What's going on?" I demanded, my voice steadier than I felt. "Why am I not welcome at Christmas? What did I do?" Amanda didn't even glance up. "You really don't get it, do you?" she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "You've been slacking off. The kids barely got anything from you this year." I stared at her. "Barely? I've spent hundreds on them. There's more in my car right now than anyone else is getting." She finally looked at me, her eyes narrowing. "Last year you did more. This year it's like you don't care. It's embarrassing for us, Chloe." Embarrassing for them? I felt the heat rise in my chest. I glanced at Mom and Dad, hoping for support, but Mom only offered an awkward shrug. Dad avoided my gaze. That was when I knew I wasn't just unwelcome this year. I was being judged, and in their eyes I had already lost. I wish I could say Amanda's words rolled off my back that night, but they didn't. They dug in like splinters, pulling up years of memories I had been trying not to think about, because here's the thing. She wasn't wrong about one part. I had done more in the past, so much more. When Amanda married Tom, they were already on shaky financial ground. Tom had quit his job to find something better, but that something better never seemed to materialize. Amanda was working part-time at a boutique, barely covering groceries, and they were behind on rent by the time they sent out the wedding invitations. I remember the first time I helped them, it was for rent, 2 days before they were going to be evicted. Amanda had called me crying, saying she didn't know where the kids would sleep. I wired the money without hesitation. I told myself it was temporary, that once Tom found work and Amanda picked up more hours they'd be fine, but temporary turned into permanent. When their car broke down, I paid for the repairs. When the twins needed new laptops for school, I bought them. When Tom's business idea needed startup capital, I wrote the check even though I had no idea what the business actually was. And every Christmas, I went all out. Not just for the kids, but for Amanda, for Tom, for Mom and Dad too. I loved seeing their faces light up. I told myself I was doing it because family helps family. But somewhere along the way, the gratitude started to fade. My gifts became expected, my help became an obligation, and the few times I said I couldn't pitch in, like when I was saving for a down payment on my own place, Amanda made me feel like I was letting everyone down. One year when Tom's hours were cut, and they couldn't afford summer camp for the kids, Amanda said. I guess they'll just sit at home all summer, bored. The way she said it made it sound like I was personally ruining their childhood. So I paid for camp. Looking back, I see it now. I trained them to see me as a safety net. Not just for emergencies, but for every bump in the road. And I think that's why this Christmas stung so badly, because I had already done so much too much, and the one year I didn't overextend myself, I was punished for it. As I drove home after that second confrontation, my hands tied on the steering wheel, the truth settled in my chest like a weight. This wasn't about the gifts. It wasn't even about Christmas. It was about control. And Amanda hated that. For the first time in years, she didn't have it. The morning after Christmas Eve, I woke up to an odd stillness, no pinging. Phone notifications, no cheery "Merry Christmas" text from Mom. Not even one of Amanda's passive-aggressive group messages. It was quiet. I lay in bed for a few minutes, staring at the ceiling, letting the reality of last night settle. I had been publicly humiliated by my own sister, dismissed by my parents, and somehow painted as the villain for not spending enough on her kids. The worst part? None of it surprised me anymore. By the time I made coffee, I decided I was done. Done being the wallet in the family, done bending over backwards to meet Amanda's unspoken quotas for acceptable generosity. I didn't make a big announcement. I didn't send a dramatic text or write a long, self-righteous email. I simply stopped. No more Venmo transfers when they were short on rent. No covering sports fees or school trips. No surprise packages arriving at their doorstep, just because. If they wanted to see me as a burden, fine. Let them feel what life was like without me footing the bill. Days passed. Christmas came and went without a single message from Amanda or my parents. New Year's Eve was the same. My phone sat on the coffee table all night. Screen dark, midnight came and went. And the silence felt heavier than any insult Amanda had thrown at me. Part of me had hoped, maybe foolishly, that at least my parents would reach out. That Mom would say she regretted how things went down. That Dad would finally speak up for me. But they didn't. Instead, the absence of contact became its own message. They were fine without me. Or at least, they wanted me to think they were. I told myself it didn't matter. That I was fine without them too. But I'd be lying if I said the quiet didn't ache sometimes. There were moments pouring my morning coffee, driving home from work when I'd instinctively think, I should call Mom, before remembering how she'd stood by while Amanda called me a loser. By the second week of January, I realized something unexpected. The silence wasn't just a punishment. It was a test. Amanda was waiting for me to break, to call her first, to apologize for not doing enough. But I wasn't going to. If they wanted distance, I'd give it to them. And if Amanda thought she could shame me back into being her personal ATM, she was about to find out she'd miscalculated badly. It was a Tuesday evening in late January when the pounding started. At first, I thought it was a delivery too loud. Maybe, but still possible. I was halfway through making dinner, a pot of pasta bubbling on the stove. The knocking didn't stop. When I finally opened the door, Amanda stood there, cheeks flushed from the cold, coat half sipped. Tom was behind her, his hands buried in his pockets, eyes darting anywhere but mine. We need to talk, Amanda said, brushing past me like she owned the place. The sharp scent of her perfume filled my hallway. Nice to see you too, I muttered, closing the door. She didn't waste time. You've made your point, Chloe. But this is getting ridiculous. The kids barely have what they need. Tom's been doing everything he can. I barked out a laugh, cutting her off. Everything he can? Last I heard he was between opportunities and working on something big. Tom bristled, but stayed quiet. Amanda's tone sharpened. This isn't about him. This is about you. You've always helped before. And now, suddenly, you've decided you're too good for your own family? I crossed my arms. No. I've decided I'm done being treated like a bank. Big difference. Her eyes narrowed. You think you're punishing me, but you're really punishing the kids. That one landed like she intended hard. Right in the chest, but I didn't let her see it. The kids are your responsibility. Tom's responsibility, not mine. Amanda glanced at Tom like she was expecting backup. He shifted uncomfortably, then muttered, "We're just asking for a little help until things get better." I took a deep breath, steadying my voice. And how many times have I heard that exact sentence? Things never get better. They just get more expensive. Amanda's cheeks reddened. And for a second, I thought she might cry. Instead, she jabbed a finger toward me. You've changed. You used to care about this family. Now you're selfish. That word, selfish, hit like a slap. I leaned forward just enough to make sure she heard every word. Selfish? You stood in Mom's doorway and called me a loser because I didn't spend enough on your kids. You think that's caring? You think that's family? Amanda's jaw tightened, but she didn't answer. Here's the truth, I said, my voice low. I'm done financing your life. If you want more, earn it. If you can't, then figure it out, but don't come here expecting me to fix it for you. The silence between us stretched. Finally, Amanda spun on her heel, pulling the door open so hard it rattled. Tom followed without looking at me. The click of the door closing behind them felt final. But something told me this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. 2 days after Amanda and Tom stormed out of my house, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. Normally, I'd let it go to voicemail, but something made me swipe. Except, hello? Is this Chloe Harper? The voice was male, calm, professional. Yes, who's calling? My name is Daniel Ross. I'm an attorney here in Boston. I represent a client who has concerns about certain financial matters involving your family. Do you have a moment to discuss? My stomach tightened. Financial matters? What does that even mean? I can't go into detail over the phone, he said evenly. But it involves monetary contributions you've made to your sister Amanda and her husband Tom. Specifically how those contributions were used. A cold, prickling sensation spread down my arms. Who's your client? He hesitated. Just enough for my pulse to pick up. Amanda's husband's financial activities have come under review, and my client believes you should be made aware. I'd like to invite you to my office tomorrow morning. I almost hung up. Almost told him to talk to Amanda directly, but something in his voice measured. Deliberate made me think there was more to this. Fine, I said. Text me the address. The next day, I sat across from Daniel Ross in a sleek office, lined with dark bookshelves and framed degrees. He slid a folder across the desk toward me. My client is someone you know, he said. It's Amanda. I blinked. She hired you? She did. Daniel confirmed. She came to me with concerns about Tom's handling of the money you've given them over the years. She recently discovered evidence suggesting that Tom has been diverting those funds into a separate account once she didn't know existed. I opened the folder. Inside were bank statements, screenshots of transactions, even photographs of receipts. This account, Daniel said, tapping a page, received direct transfers matching the times you provided financial assistance. But the expenditures from that account are unrelated to household or child expenses. I scanned the list. My chest tightened. You're telling me? I said slowly. That while I was paying for their kids' summer camp and rent, Tom was what? Playing day trader and living it up? Daniel nodded once. That's what the records suggest. I leaned back in my chair trying to process. And Amanda just found this out? She suspected for a while, but had no access to his financial accounts. The discovery came after she found a bank statement in his desk. I let out a sharp, humorless laugh. Of course. And I bet she's keeping this quiet from my parents. That's up to her, Daniel said carefully. My role is simply to inform you so you can protect yourself. She thought it was only fair you knew. I stared at the folder again. Years of emergency calls. Years of Venmo transfers with little notes for the kids, school fees, rent. And all this time a portion of it was going to Tom's personal slush fund. I felt angry. Betrayed. Stupid. but above all, relieved. Relieved to have proof that I wasn't crazy. Relieved that my decision to cut them off wasn't heartless. It was necessary. What does Amanda plan to do? I asked. Daniel's expression shifted. She's considering her options. Separation is one possibility. She's focused on securing her children's stability first. A part of me wanted to cheer for her. Another part wanted to remind her she'd stood silently by while I was humiliated at Christmas. Instead, I closed the folder and pushed it back toward him. Tell her I got the message. And tell her. She's stronger than she thinks. When I left the office, Boston's winter wind cut straight through my coat, but my mind was buzzing too much to feel the cold. I knew Tom would find out I'd been told. And when he did, he'd come running with excuses. Maybe even accusations. I wasn't wrong. That night, my phone lit up with his name. Against my better judgment, I answered. You've been talking to Amanda. Tom snapped. No greeting. Feeding her lies. I laughed outright. Oh, that's rich. You think I'm the liar here? She's making a big deal out of nothing. Nothing? My voice rose. You hid money from your own wife. You blew it on God knows what while I covered your bills. You think that's nothing? A pause. Then a sneer I could hear through the line. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. No, Tom. I cut in. I understand it perfectly. You just don't like that the free ride's over. I hung up before he could respond. My hands were shaking. But for the first time in years, it wasn't from guilt. It was from finally knowing the truth. 2 days after Tom's angry phone call, Amanda's name flashed on my screen. For a second, I considered letting it go to voicemail. But something told me this wasn't going to be the usual guilt trip. I picked up. Amanda, she didn't waste time. Did Tom call you? Her voice was tight, cautious. Yeah, he wasn't thrilled. There was a pause, then a sigh. I confronted him. About the account. The money. He admitted some of it. But he's still trying to make it sound like it's no big deal. I leaned against the counter, staring at the coffee cup in my hand. Amanda, it's thousands of dollars, money you thought was going to the kids. I know, she said quietly. I've been making excuses for him for years, Chloe. I didn't want to see it. But after Christmas, after how he treated you. Her voice cracked. The kids deserve better than this. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to remind her she'd stood silent while I was called a loser in front of our parents. Another part wanted to protect her because I knew how hard it was to admit you'd built your life around someone who was hollow at the core. What are you going to do? I asked finally. I'm not sure yet, she admitted. I'm talking to Daniel about my options. Separation, maybe more. I let out a slow breath. Whatever you decide, I've got your back. But you need to understand. I can't go back to the way things were. I'm not going to be your safety net. I'm not asking you to, Amanda said, and for once I believed her. I'm asking you to. Just not give up on me completely. We talked for another 15 minutes. Most of it awkward small talk that felt like trying to patch a cracked vase with glue. But when we hung up, I realized something had shifted. This wasn't Amanda the accuser, Amanda the entitled sister. This was Amanda the woman who'd finally seen her husband for who he was, and was trying to figure out what came next. The next week was quiet, almost eerily so. No texts from Tom. No surprise knocks at my door. I started to think maybe they both retreated to lick their wounds. Then, one Saturday morning, Amanda texted, "We need to meet, just us." We met at a coffee shop, halfway between our places. She looked tired older. Even her hair pulled back in a loose bun. No makeup? I told him I want space. She said as soon as we sat down. He didn't take it well. But I can't keep pretending this is normal. I studied her face. There was no smugness, no defiance, just exhaustion, and under it, a flicker of resolve. Do you have a plan? I asked. She nodded slowly. I'm looking for rentals, something small. I'm not telling him until I'm ready to move. The less time he has to interfere, the better. For the first time in months, I felt a swell of something other than anger toward her. Respect, maybe. Relief. I mean it, Chloe, Amanda said, wrapping her hands around her coffee cup. I'm sorry. For Christmas. For letting it get this far. You didn't deserve that. I didn't say I forgive you. I wasn't there yet. But I did say, you're doing the right thing. And for now, that was enough. It happened faster than I expected. On a gray Thursday afternoon, my phone buzzed with a text from Amanda. We're leaving today. No lead up, no explanation, just that. I called her immediately. What's going on? I asked. Her voice was hushed, urgent. Tom's out of town for a business meeting, which I'm pretty sure is just another excuse to hole up somewhere and trade stocks. I hired a moving van. We're packing everything we can and getting out before he gets back. Where are you going? I found a small rental 2 towns over, month to month. Just enough space for me and the kids. She hesitated. I don't want him to know where we are, until I've sorted things out legally. I could hear the kids in the background, muffled laughter, the scrape of boxes on the floor. It hit me that they had no idea how much their lives were about to change. What do you need from me? I asked. I hate to even say this, Amanda began, her voice dropping. But I'm short on the deposit and first month's rent. I wouldn't ask if say no more, I interrupted. I'll cover it. It surprised me how easily the words came. This wasn't like before writing checks into a bottomless pit. This was helping her take a step toward independence. By the time we hung up, I was already transferring the money. 2 days later, Amanda sent me a photo of her and the kids sitting cross-legged on the floor of their new place. Pizza boxes open, a small Christmas tree in the corner even though it was already mid-January. We're okay, the caption read. I wanted to believe it. Tom, predictably, didn't take the news well. He called me within hours of finding the house empty. His voice was wild, almost frantic. You did this, he accused. You turned her against me. You've ruined my life. I let him rant. When he finally paused for breath, I said, maybe if you'd spent less time gambling with her trust in my money, she wouldn't have had to leave. His response was a string of curses before he hung up. I stared at my phone for a long moment after the call ended, realizing that I didn't feel shaken. I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. In the weeks that followed, Amanda settled into her new routine. She got a part-time job at a local bookstore, enrolled the kids in their new school, and started talking about saving for her own car. For the first time in years, I wasn't propping her up, I was just standing beside her. And that made all the difference. A month after Amanda moved out, I drove to visit her. Her little rental sat on a quiet street, the kind where kids rode bikes without looking over their shoulders. The front porch was cluttered with potted plants, a sure sign she was making at her own. When she opened the door, the smell of fresh coffee and cinnamon rolls drifted out. The kids were sprawled on the living room floor, doing homework, arguing over crayons in the easy, harmless way siblings do. You look lighter, I told her, stepping inside. Amanda smiled, small but real. I feel lighter. We sat at the kitchen table, and for the first time in years, our conversation wasn't about money. It was about the kids' new friends, her job at the bookstore, the little victories of everyday life. At one point, she reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I know I said some awful things at Christmas. I wish I could take them back. I met her eyes. You can't, but you can make sure the next Christmas looks different. She nodded, a determined glint in her gaze. Back in my own house that evening, I unpacked the gift bags I'd never delivered. Some of the presents had been meant for Amanda's kids' board games, sweaters, books. I set them aside to mail to her. The rest I kept. Not out of spite, but as a reminder that generosity without boundaries turns into obligation, a reminder that family isn't a license to take without giving, a reminder that I don't have to buy my way into anyone's love. Tom still calls sometimes, though I never pick up. I hear he's blaming everyone but himself, spinning stories about how Amanda abandoned him, how I poisoned her against him. Let him talk. His words don't stick anymore. Because here's the truth. The day Amanda called me a loser, I believed her if only for a moment. But now I know better. A loser is someone who refuses to face their own mess, who drags everyone else down with them, and I walked away from that. So when I think about last Christmas, standing on my parents' porch with those heavy gift bags, I don't feel the sting anymore. I feel relief. Relief that I set the boundary. Relief that Amanda found her way out. Relief that I finally learned the difference between helping and enabling. No place for losers, Amanda had said. Fine. I guess that means I finally found my place,